How's everybody doing tonight? Hope you have recovered a little bit from last night. My name is Chad Hassan with Sea of Red. I am joined by my good friend, founder, creator, all things at seaofred.com, John Manson. And John, I guess the reason we're doing this uh, live tonight is to react to the basketball season. Um, you know, the whole season as a whole, the disappointing game last night, just kind of, I'm hoping, honestly, after talking with you, I've been around Liberty basketball since 2005. You predate me by just only a couple of years. So we've kind of been around this thing for nearly 2 decades at this point. And so, we have a little bit of perspective on what it means uh, the losing in the tournament and not making the NCAA tournament, not making the NIT most likely. So, yeah, hopefully we could add some perspective. You've been following it really closely for a long time, so you probably have some stats you're going to throw our way. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure I know which ones you're going to lead off with. But you can see I got the softball game on in the background. It's 4-0, and it's going to the top of the fourth right now. So always a good day to beat JMU. Baseball team's rolling. Golf is expected to be top 25. So, it's kind of putting a band-aid on some of these wounds. But John, well, let's start here. Let's start with uh, let's start with the game last night. Let's start with the game last night. Just what are your top two or three? I mean, I read your article. Other than the three takeaways you had in the article, what are your thoughts on Bellarmine coming into Liberty for the first time and winning last night? How did they do it? What was it that wasn't working for the Flames? And just the game last night. We'll start there.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough pill to swallow. I mean, I liked our draw. We all talked about it when the tournament bracket was revealed. I thought the bracket set up perfect for us. I liked having the chance of playing Lipscomb in the first round. I thought that was a good matchup for us, and it was a lot closer than I thought. And then I loved having Bellarmine in the semifinals. I thought that was perfect. I also thought having Jacksonville going to Jacksonville State was a really good chance that the Gamecocks could lose and we could play at home. And that's what played out. The game, we got off to such a terrible start. What was it, 15-2, 14-2, something like that. But then, it flipped midway through the first half and we went on a 24-4 run in the first half and went into the locker room up 8. And I was like, okay, let's turn on this Jacksonville State game and hope they lose because I felt like we were going to coast to the win. We got up by 10 there the opening minutes of the first half or the second half. In less than 2 minutes, Bellarmine went on a 10-0 run and tied it up. And the game was, back and forth the rest of the way. It's frustrating. It's hard to swallow, but I mean, Dylan Penn, that shot he made with less than a minute to go on Shiloh, who Shiloh played terrific defense all night. He struggled on offense a lot the last few weeks, but that defense he played on Penn was just amazing. And I still don't know how Penn got that shot over him. I mean, Shiloh's got 3 or 4 inches on Penn, and he was able to get the ball out past his outstretched arm and got it in there. But and then we came down, and one thing that I saw we'll get into it. I saw some comments on Twitter, and it's so easy to be emotional in your responses so quickly after a tough loss. And this is I got my Darius shirt on. I love Darius McGee, greatest player of all time in Liberty basketball history. But one thing I will say, and this is no disrespect to Darius, not at all. So don't take it that way. But one thing that I've noticed that we've done a lot down the stretch of these past, few weeks in these games is when games get close and we need a bucket at the end, we ISO Darius, which is, I'm not mad about it, but we do it repeatedly, time after time, every time down the court. We don't even move the ball. Darius brings the ball across half court, and he stands there and milks the clock a little bit, and then tries to get maybe a pick and roll or ISO his guy. And yes, I would live and die with the ball in Darius McGee's hands, but that's not Liberty basketball. That's never been Liberty basketball under Coach McKay. That's not our offense. We move the ball, we pass the ball around, and So anyways, after Dylan Penn made that shot, we come down and ISO Darius, and it didn't look like we really got a set play drawn up, and he turned it over. Or we turned it over. I don't recall if it was Darius' turnover, but then they got the ball and we had to foul them, and then you're playing from behind the eight ball at that point in time. So
yeah,
it's just disappointing, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. I mean, we've played how many games of the past 2 or 3 weeks that we played that were one possession games in the last minute, or we had, I think it was the last 4 games, right? And 2 of them went to overtime. We won 2 and lost 2. And that's just the way it goes. I mean, when you get into the final 2 minutes of a one possession game, flip a coin, 50% chance you're going to win, 50% chance you're going to lose. And unfortunately, I was hoping we would get that separation there from Bellarmine, like it looked like we were going to at the start of the second half, into the first half, but that didn't happen. And heartbreak ensued thereafter, which we can get into as well.
yeah. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get it out of the way. I have 2 critiques, and again, I mean, I could preface this all you want, but the fact of the matter is, we didn't get the job done. We're left here without going to any tournament, significant tournament. So we didn't get the job done. So I have 2 critiques. And if you follow us at all, you kind of know how we feel about McKay and the coaching staff and the program as a whole. And we'll get to all that. But I just want to say the 2 things I noticed that weren't going this, and honestly, I pulled these from the last 3 years. 2 things that I noticed different about this team. What was different about this team? And I'll start with exactly what you said. It was ISO Darius, and it was the Darius McGee show, and I'm not mad about that, to be honest with you. I mean, but it also felt like last night, we just didn't get that second guy stepping up. But it was like I have never seen. So first of all, he's an outstanding player, one of the best in the country this year. He scored 48. He had another 43. It was like
47.
47. He had the quietest 30-point games I've ever seen in my life. Outstanding, the most humble. Like, he's a great person and he's a great player. But sometimes it felt like that because of that, after he scored that 48, it kind of turned into, okay, Darius is so amazing that we need to everybody kind of to defer just a little bit more than I have ever seen before I mean, it goes back to like something you remember seeing with Seth Curry, where it was like, they were all over him. And I kind of relate it to what happened with Malik this year. Both really just far and away superior basketball players in their compared to their competition, but also we just leaned on them too heavy to make these spectacular plays. And that's great in a tournament game. I was trying to explain this to you the other day and it kind of fell short, but in a tournament game, you love your chances with a guy like that. Like, it's one game, you match up against Duke, UNC, it doesn't matter. We have the best player in the gym and you love that, right? But the consistency of trying to win a tournament like that, to me, like to win 3 or 4 games in a row with that mentality, that's tough, And so that's my first. The second thing that I'll say that was different than any other year during the 3-year win streak, the three-peat, was the rotation. I've never seen a rotation. We talk about it all the time. Even the start of conference play, McKay has his 7-8. John, last year, you and I could pretty much guarantee who was checking in at what time in the game and what was going on. Be like, all right, they just hit a 3. It's time to bring back in Elijah and it would happen. He'd go to the scores table and there's Elijah Cuffey. This year, I had no idea what was happening. I had no clue. The rotation, I don't know if that's we had too many good players. I don't know if that's the puzzle pieces didn't fit together. We never found the right combo. I don't know if we were had a missing puzzle piece that is that the point guard point guard play. I mean, didn't our starting point guard transfer halfway through the year? So to start the season. So it could be a number of things. It could be, this is the most talent we've had, and that's maybe why we saw a little bit of that, or that we were, like I said, we were trying to find the right combo. We had all the talent. We just couldn't ever find that right combo. It could be we were playing a lot of young guys. I mean, I noticed Brody yesterday, and he went off in the first half, and my dad was at the game, and he was like, "Who's that freshman, man? He's in there, he's going off." And I said, he's a freshman, and it kind of shows. And I said, I'm not sure that he'll have, any points in the second half. And that's no knock on Brody, because I think he's going to be a star. But, that's the kind of puzzle pieces we're working with, where it's like, you're playing behind Darius. And so I'm rambling, but my two critiques are we started leaning heavy on Darius more than any other Liberty team I've ever seen, and I honestly don't blame him. He's a phenomenal player, but that was different than what we've used to seeing. And the other thing is the rotation. I don't think I've never seen where it was so up in the air. I mean, Isaiah Warfield come on 3 or 4 games ago and started getting a lot of minutes, and then Blake Preston, you mentioned it in the press conference the other night. I mean, he didn't play hardly 3 games in a row, and then Asana Sajula comes to town and he goes out and plays great defense. And it's like, did we try to be reactionary or something, or think about the ASUN game when Asana Sajula came to the Vines, and it wasn't like, oh, we're going to change everything we're doing and put in a guy who doesn't play much in Blake Preston. No, we went with our guy, Mayo Baxter Bell, and he guarded him the whole game, right? It was like, we're going to do what we do, you adjust to us. And I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if it was too many adjustments. I don't know if it was not the right puzzle pieces. I don't know if we were missing a puzzle piece. And I don't honestly, what it comes down to me is I think Coach McKay had his hands full with the amount of talent we had on the bench. Honestly, I mean, when you're recruiting a kid like Isaiah Warfield or Micaiah B or Brody Peebles or Joseph Vinzant, those 4 guys, they're highly recruited guys. I mean, I know you tell them you come in and we're a developmental program. I heard McKay say that last night, but it's still hard to, if they show flashes, to keep them on the bench. And so I just think he had a really the whole season just kind of felt off with the rotation. So that's kind of my two critiques. And again, I need to say that I don't have it all figured out. I'm not honestly, these guys are way smarter than I am. But just as a fan, I'm trying to tell you what I saw that was different. And I love Coach McKay. I will always want him to be the leader of and it's something else, because I just critiqued the team. I need to say that it, I win or lose, the way they represented me and our university and our fan base, it is way more important than going to me, than a championship. I mean, to have that kind of success, but it's the manner in which they did it that was so important. So, all of this is just kind of like, it's just kind of like, well, it didn't work out, so be let's try to have revisionist history here and go back and figure out why it didn't work out. That's just because that's what we do as a fan blog. That's what we do. That's what would that's the kind of the persona that we have online here, and with the Sea of Red. That's just kind of what we do, is try to figure out why it didn't work. But in the end, I am so proud of these guys and the way they represented us, the success they've had, and we can kind of get into all that. But hopefully, I did want to say that those are the two kind of critiques I've had, just from my viewpoint. So, John, do you have anything like that? Like, what is it
Yeah.
that was off to you?
No, a couple comments based on what you had to say. Then I want to jump into, just taking a step back and a little bit of perspective. But yeah, no, I agree, and with what you were saying about the rotation, and I think, I hadn't really stopped and thought about that in a while, and I'm glad you pointed that out. But that's exactly right. I mean, it felt like McKay never figured out what his 7 or 8 man rotation was, even up until the conference tournament. It's kind of like, okay, are we going to put Brody in now? Okay, he might play 7 minutes in the first half, then he wouldn't play in the second half. Okay, is Blake going to play tonight? Is this a night he plays 15 to 20 minutes, or is this a night he plays 5 minutes? Does DJ Moore fit in the rotation or not? And so that's very an astute observation by yourself. And as we've talked about it a lot, whether it was online through a live throughout the year, or just in text or conversations we've had one-on-one. But McKay's always had that 7 or 8 man rotation. You knew who was going to play every single night. You knew how much they were going to play, and he never got to that for whatever reason. And I think part of it goes into what you were talking about there with the point guard. Drake Dobbs a year ago now, 10 months ago, I think I put an article together, and I had Drake Dobbs as probably the 3rd or 4th most important player on this team. I mean, he was expected to step right in immediately and be the point guard starter after Chris Parker. He had last year to get 1 year under his belt with the team. And I watched some games this week from the conference tournament last year and other games last year, and Drake was a solid player for a freshman. I mean, he played really well. And he was supposed to step into that role and be, kind of the steady ship, the steady captain of the ship at point guard. And for whatever reason, it just didn't work out with him. I mean, I heard, you and I both heard so much throughout the summer and into the preseason how he just wasn't taking that next step. It was like he actually regressed during the offseason. I don't know why. And then all of a sudden it gets to the point, where, 3rd game into the year, right, or 2nd game into the year, we're burning DJ Moore's red shirt just to try to figure out what's going on at point guard. And that turnover issue ended up being something that we dealt with off and on throughout the whole year. And part of that was due to Darius having to have the ball in his hands so much and having to do too much. And obviously, as we kind of talked about, it led to Drake transferring there after they went to Hawaii and he came back from there. So I don't know. It just seems like McKay wasn't able to figure out this jigsaw puzzle this year. And again, like you just said, I have no idea. I wouldn't know what to do, certainly as much as he'd done. And that's one thing, that I wanted to talk about tonight is, you and I are both diehard Liberty fans. That's why we do this. That's why we're on here at 8:50 at night with a softball game on in the background and all that stuff. It's so much easier just to shut it down and sulk in our own misery. But, we are huge fans. And that game last night, 24 hours ago, it was hard to take in. It was the most humiliating, I don't know if this is the right word, but demoralizing is probably a better word, loss that I think we've suffered as a Liberty fan base in any sport, football, men's basketball, baseball, softball, the list goes on, that we've had in years. I mean, maybe ever. I know that Radford game in the conference championship game when Carlik Jones hit that buzzer beater was just a dagger in the heart. But I think this game hurt worse. And I think the reason why, if we step back, and this is, Chad, I shared some of this with you this morning, is just what this program has become over the past 5 years. And it's due in complete part due to Coach McKay and what he's done. And I saw some comments online and on Twitter and Facebook and in our message boards over the last 24 hours. And whoever's making those comments is just they don't know Liberty basketball. Maybe they don't even know basketball, but to even question Coach McKay, it's okay to question his decisions maybe this season, but to question whether he's the right man for the job, that's just, I'm trying to say something that's nice, but I don't have the words. But you're wrong. So if we go back and think, I've been a fan. You kind of alluded to it there at your opening statement. I've been a fan. I enrolled at Liberty in the fall of 2002. So 20 basketball season, just completed the 20th basketball season as a Liberty Flame fan. In those 20 years, and I'll break it down to the first 15 years that I was a Liberty basketball fan, we made it to a conference championship game twice in 15 years. We won them both, but twice in 15 years. In those 15 years, we were knocked out of the first round tournament 10 times. 10 out of 15 years, we were one and done in the conference tournament. So we won 2 championships. One of those championships was 2013, which we were the last place team in the conference. That we were basically like North Alabama this year, and we got hot. Devon Marshall and John Caleb Sanders and won 4 straight games, and made it to the tournament and the playing game with 20-some losses or whatever. So that was kind of a fluke, if you want to call it that. No offense to those guys like Joel Vanderpool, who's on here a lot, listening to our stuff, but. So the first 15 years, we were one and done 10 times, made the conference championship game twice, won the tournament twice. So we never expected it. Like it was like I never made plans for, to be at conference tournament games in March. I never made plans to go to the NCAA tournament in March. Never did. It was nothing you had to even think about. And that all started to change, over these past 5 years. We make that run to the conference championship game in 2018 against Radford and lose. And, but over these past 5 years, yes, we lost last night and didn't make the conference championship game for the 5th straight time. But in these past 5 years, we made 4 conference championship games, 4 out of 5 years, which doubles what we did in the previous 15 years. We have not lost in the first round of the conference tournament once in 5 years. So we're 0 for 5 in that regard, or 5 for 5, however you want to say it that way. But because of that, we've come to the point where we expect to win. These past 3, 4, 5 years, we've got to the point where we expect to win. We expect to be playing for a conference championship each and every year. That's the level of expectation that Coach McKay and this program has developed. So in my opinion, because of those expectations, because of how much we've grown, the loss last night hurt so much more than any other loss we ever had. Hurt more than Radford, because at the end of that Radford game, yes, it hurt. But at the same time, I was thinking, man, that was a great run we went on. I was so happy to get to the conference championship game, and we could have won. If one or two plays goes different in the final minute, we win that game. And then 2019 we win it, and you win a conference championship game. You win the conference championship, then you beat Mississippi State, and we can sit here and talk about that Virginia Tech game. We could have won. We were winning at halftime, but still, we'll always look back on 2019 as like the greatest basketball season in Liberty basketball history. And you're not going to have bad thoughts because of the loss to Virginia Tech in the second round. 2020 is always the what if season, right? I mean, that's a team that could have made the Sweet 16. I think they, given the right matchup, could have, but they ended the season on a win, right, with another conference championship. And last year, it was disappointing to lose to Oklahoma State, but we were happy to win the conference championship, even though it was a 3rd straight year, right? Mm-hmm. So then this year, we were again expecting to make a conference championship game. We were expecting to win, even though the team had struggles over the past few years, and it hurt. It really hurt. And it's funny. I was reading through the Seer Red mentions and notifications last night and today, and there's tons of fans from other schools that are jumping in those comments and taking shots at Liberty fans and whatnot right now. That didn't happen 4 years ago. I can tell you that with a fact. That did not happen 4 years ago. It happens today. People like to kick us because, we're quote unquote the big dog now, right? So, I can remember back when Greg Marshall was at Winthrop, I would always go on Winthrop's message board and talk crap to them when they would lose, because that's what you did. You wanted to try to ruffle the feathers. Well, now that's what people are doing to us. And, it's okay to feel pain and to hurt and all that stuff. It's okay to cry, even if you want to do that. I try not to.
It's not okay to cry. It's not okay to cry.
But, that was just some things I wanted to share there. So.
No, man, that's some great perspective. And that was mind blowing to me when you shared it. Again, that's 15 years. The first 15 years that we kind of followed the program, they made the conference championship only twice in that whole year. The last 5 years, it's been 4 out of 5. That's incredible stuff. Incredible stat, and kind of puts perspective. So Two other things I wanted to get to are the growth of the fan base. Last night and even the quarterfinals game was incredible. I've never even thought that that was a possible as a Liberty fan. I thought that we would always be just this. I don't know what I thought. I never thought that we would get to the level where we were that engaged, where we were that intelligent as a fan base with sports. I mean, John, I guess if you haven't been around the program very long, you don't understand this, but there were times where it was like 90% of the people in there were there for just to be there as a social event. It was even in the championship games, it was a lot of just like shaking hands and getting your best outfit on. It was more like a parade, more like a I don't know what to say, what it was. It was more like a social event, I guess. Last night, I mean, there were and everybody's wearing Liberty gear last night. Everybody had on the red, everybody had on the different Liberty gear, which was incredible. You only saw that like two or three shirts, two or three jackets, and if look, John, tell me if this is wrong. Whenever we would go to games in the Vine Center back in the earlier 2000s, tell me that whenever you saw some Liberty gear on, they were an athlete or they worked in athletics, right? You never saw fans wearing that. So to get to the point where last night the whole place was full of Liberty fans supporting the team, paying the money. As I mentioned this last night. So here's some indicators of where we've come as a fan base. One, I saw a ton of gear. Right, that's important. That was crazy to see. Two, even Coach Davenport commented on how smart and intelligent our fan base was. That's mind blowing to me. I mean, I've been into sports. You've been into sports, but to have all of these Liberty fans that are really into the game, and when he says smart, he's talking about the defensive stops being so important, knowing right exactly when and the time of the game to get everybody up. There were times when there was huge moments and we missed a shot, and our fan base did not hang their heads and they kind of rallied. That was incredible to see. So one was gear, two was the intelligence and just engagement. And I've already forgot my third one. Oh, I know what it was. John, yesterday. So the way they do tickets, I bought four seats, $15 a piece. And if we won, then they would just automatically charge my card on file and I would get those four seats. For the semifinals game, my wife and I decided to come. We decided to get a babysitter and not bring any kids. So it was we only were using two tickets. So I, offered them to a few friends and said, "Hey, you guys need tickets? Let me know." And both of them were like, "No, we can't." And so, anyways, I had two extra tickets. I threw them up on StubHub about 45 minutes before I got to the arena, and they sold for $25 a piece. Right. So I paid 15. I sold them for $25 a piece, and I didn't put them up until 45 minutes before the game. Tell me that's not the craziest thing you've ever heard of in a Liberty basketball situation where our tickets are almost doubled in price on the aftermarket. I mean, John, how many times have you seen like the helicopter go over elementary schools with tickets, just like anybody can come? And we're talking like championship games. It's like, oh, we tonight we have Lincoln Elementary, we have Sandusky Elementary, we have everybody affiliated with a public school in the Lynchburg city is in this building for free, and we're talking championship games. We're not talking like Carver. We're talking
Yeah.
like Big South championship
No,
games.
when I was a student at Liberty, and I'm sure you were there right after I was, or when I was at the end of it. Liberty hosted the Big South tournament. The entire tournament was at the Vine Center in like what 03 or 04, I forget which year. Liberty bought 4,000 students because students have to pay to get into those games. So Liberty bought 4,000 tickets for students. And you had to go, and they were like handing them out at Convo. So they would have people in the stand so it wouldn't be empty. So, to go from that to where we're at and what you're talking about last night is just unbelievable.
So I guess the point I'm making is where we've come as a fan base. Now, I mean, in the last 2 or 3 years, I see some comments here about the game in the Vine Center 2019 against Lipscomb. That was incredible too. I mean, 9,000 people versus 4,000 there yesterday.
So that's also a conference championship game on ESPN compared to a semifinal game.
Yes, and also Lipscomb traveled a little bit better than Bellarmine, and all you had the whole Lipscomb thing going on too. So, yeah, I'm talking 10 years ago versus this kind of the same time frame you mentioned earlier, 15 years. So where our fan base has come is really means a lot to me, and it means a lot to me because, I felt like um, I don't know. I felt like in those early years, I guess a lot of us did. We felt like we would never get to a spot where Liberty would have this type of engagement and this type of like we couldn't be proud to call ourselves Liberty fans and kind of proud to meet the person next to you wearing the gear and be like, oh, let's go Flames. It's like, oh, that guy's here because his girlfriend wants to be here, and that guy's here because he got. Anyways, the fan engagement was incredible, and it has been for the last couple of years. But it's just a culmination the last few nights. Just those are just some tangible things that I saw. The gear, the comments by opposing coaches talking about our intelligence, and then selling those tickets on the aftermarket for that price, kind of indicates where we are as a fan base as well. So, John, what are your thoughts on the trajectory of the program? I mean, I've seen like, oh, we're slipping. We had a bad season. Does that mean that the trajectory of our program is downward? I mean, what does that mean when you don't win your fourth straight conference championship? Does that mean, oh no, it's all downhill from here? Or does that mean, do we have the roster to continue this? Do we have the coaching staff in place to continue this? Do we have the infrastructure with I saw something really cool today. It was talking about I basically put out there about the whole it means more at on the mountain basically, and how the way they represented us. And somebody put out there that's a culture that's built to last. I forget who said that, but that culture is one that's built to last. I feel that. I honestly feel that this culture, but do we have the nuts and the bolts to make that happen as well? So what are your thoughts, John, on losing in a semifinals to Bellarmine? And is that a huge kick and a huge knock on the trajectory of the program overall?
Yeah, no, I don't think that one loss really affects the trajectory of the program much, if at all. And to say this was a bad season, and I'm not saying that you're calling it a bad season, but I've heard people talk about it like that, but it's not. It was not a bad season. We won 20 plus games. This season, if we would have won the conference championship, which we obviously didn't, it would have been a top four season in Liberty basketball history. You could probably still make the case that it is a top 4 or 5 season in Liberty history, based on computer rankings. It is. I know some people don't discount computer rankings, and that's fine. But I mean, you can't name 10 teams better than this one in Liberty basketball history. So it's certainly a top 10 team in Liberty history. But yeah, I mean, if you look at the trajectory of the team, the program, the past 4 or 5 years, our numbers have dropped each year over the past 4 years. But I think we kind of expected it. I mean, that 2019 team, it was a junior laden team, but we did have Lavelle Cabell that year, and he's really underappreciated in my mind in the history of Liberty basketball. He's probably a top 10 player all time. He just is underappreciated because he kind of got overshadowed his entire career. First, it was Ryan Kimwright. Then it was, kind of at the end of his career, it was Caleb Holmesley and Scotty James were kind of taking over. But Lavelle was an elite defender. He also, we don't win that, obviously, that Mississippi State game in the tournament without him. I mean, all the talk goes about Caleb and him scoring 30 and hitting those big shots. Go back and watch the game. Lavelle made some huge plays and made some huge shots there too. So, that was a big loss. And Keenan Gums. We also had Keenan Gums, a grad transfer that year, and he was a great energy spark and plug and play type guy off the bench. But yeah, and so it was a slight step down, maybe based on computer numbers the following year, and then these last 2 years. But if you go back and think, going back almost 2 years ago now, going into COVID and all that stuff, when that tournament got wiped out, and the careers of Mayo and Georgie and Caleb and Scotty was coming to an end, we had huge question marks on this team. who was going to step in, who was going to take that next step. I mean, we were counting on, if you go back last year, like we were counting on Blake Preston as a starter, and he had never hardly even played at Liberty. So it was huge question marks. And when we finally we talked all year last year about, man, if we can just somehow win this year, that's great and sets us up going forward. And it did happen that way. But, so we were kind of like took a step back, but still building it back forward. And we would have liked to think that we could have, won it this year as well with Darius and Keegan still in the fold. And, losing Chris Parker and Elijah Cuffey, I don't think we realized how much those guys really meant to this team, especially Cuffey. I think he's, talk about Lavelle being underappreciated. I really think Cuffey is. I love Joseph Van Zandt. You and I have talked about this some, Chad, this year. I love Joseph Van Zandt. I think his ceiling is insanely high, but he's not Elijah Cuffey yet. I mean, Cuffey was a guy that you couldn't take off the floor last year. And Van Zandt just not there yet. I think he'll get there. I think he'll probably be there next year. But Cuffey was just, the 3-and-D type guy. I mean, you left him open in a corner for three. He's knocking that thing down. You could not help off of him. And, unfortunately, Liberty had too many one-dimensional players this year. They're still young in their development and young in their growth. But, I think this team, and again, this may sound a little crazy, and I hate to even look forward to next year already, but I think we're going to be a better team next year. I really do. I mean, I hate to lose Darius. I hate to lose Keegan. Those are two huge offensive players and offensive weapons. I personally think Darius is the GOAT at Liberty. So that's huge shoes to fill, right? But when you have a roster or lineup next year that features Shiloh Robinson, Elijah Covey, Joseph Van Zandt, and Isaiah Warfield, those three guys will get a lot of minutes. They might be starters from day one. Again, we can talk about their offensive game, but this team is going to take huge strides next year on the defensive end of the floor. I mean, teams will be doing all they can to get a bucket with those three guys on the floor. We saw it some last night against Bellarmine. Like those guys locked them up, and Bellarmine could not score. And I think we're going to have a lot of the games like that next year. Now, they have to be able to provide something on the other end of the floor because you can't – now, Shiloh shot over 40% from three this year. He needs to continue to do that and do well as, in other areas of his offensive game, as do Zay and JV. And Brody's got to take a huge step forward, and we got to figure out who's going to be our point guard. We probably need a transfer. There's lots of question marks. I get that. But I think everybody's going to step forward. Everybody, Kyle Rhodes not going to be able to be passive. He's going to have to be aggressive. I think you're going to see a lot out of Brody Peebles, but I'm really looking forward to what this team can do, especially on the defensive end of the floor next year. I think we'll get back to those principles of, look, this is a pack line defensive first team, defensive first program. I think we got away from that some this year, because we were like, we got Darius McGee, who's having one of the best offensive years of all time. Not just in Liberty history, but in NCAA history. We just got to ride him while we can, and I get that. But I think we'll get back to those defensive roots, and I think this trajectory is going to continue to go up. I still think we have a great chance to win this conference next year, and it's our last ride before we get into Conference USA, and at that point in time, that's a whole new ball game then.
Yeah, I mean, you're recruiting to the number 9 overall basketball conference as opposed to recruiting to the number 26 overall basketball conference. So Conference USA, I think, is going to be a shot in the arm. It is Conference USA is going to be a make or break for that trajectory. I mean, it's been constantly on the rise, and I think you nailed why it's still rising even after a semifinals loss to Bellarmine. I still think the program trajectory is on the rise, but I do think that Conference USA, those first few years, will tell the tale of that trajectory. I mean, it's either going to explode the trajectory, and we're going to get the recruits that we think we will, and we have already on our roster to compete, or it's going to hit. We're going to hit. It's going to be like, oh wow, we're not winning every single conference game like we used to. Were we built on winning 20 games a season, or were we built on having phenomenal talent? So we'll see. John, in the recovery process from just being down and out all day, I wanted to mention, I kind of put this on Twitter earlier, but it's important. Man, what Ian McCall is building at Liberty in our athletics department overall. We have so much to be like just cheer for. It's insane. I mean, watching softball right now. They're
What's the
13-6,
score?
4-0. They're
Okay.
blanking. Emily Kirby's had an excellent outing, but we're blanking JMU. This feels great, and JMU was a good team last year. Baseball is hot as hot gets. I mean, we got the best player in the country, Orndorff, just smashing homers. We got a great pit. We got dudes on the in the bullpen, and then golf. I mean, golf is a spring sport that I love to follow and keep up with. We have so much like national attention, not just individual. Like we've always had that one cross country runner or whatever, but these are teams that are competing and getting national respect. So
Yeah,
just wanted,
it's every team. I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's every team. I mean,
yeah,
and I know we don't cover every single sport to the depth that we do football, basketball, and baseball. But swimming and diving, they're sending somebody to nationals. They won a conference championship. That they got a dynasty going on over there. Track and field, indoor, outdoor, cross country. They got dynasties going on. It's
field hockey
every
played for a national championship.
They didn't even talk
Yeah,
about field hockey, and
yeah,
they made it to the
yeah.
national championship
I know.
game. I mean, it's
So it's
every
like
sport.
it was easy to turn the page, easier to turn the page this morning when I woke up. I was like, wow, basketball season's over, I think. Unless something crazy happens, or John, yes or no on this? Are we going to make the NIT tournament?
No, we will.
Okay,
We're not
yeah,
going to get an NIT. That's a no go. And I've seen some comments and people asking on social media and things too about if Liberty's going to play anymore. They have been offered, I guess is the right way to phrase it, invited, I guess, to both the CBI and the CIT, which has changed its name this year, some basketball championship or something. I forget the name of it. But they've been invited to those two tournaments, and the team's supposedly going to have a team meeting and vote on whether or not they want to accept one of those invitations going forward. But so we don't really know at this point in time.
So my overall point is I was able to quickly turn the page. Not that I didn't love basketball. It's one of my first. It is probably if I had to rank them. Sorry, football, but I love Liberty basketball. It's what I kind of grew up on and my favorite. You get to know the players a little bit better because they're not wearing helmets. There's only 5 of them, not 22 of them. That you have to learn and get to know the sport. I understand the sport a little bit better. It's a little bit prettier to me. I like everything about basketball, but it's easier to basically say, well, basketball season's over. It was a good run. We have the right guys in place. Hopefully, we can make a run next year because we have all of this to cheer for as Liberty Flames fans. And I would just encourage you guys if you're watching and you're kind of like stuck on football and basketball. Like a lot of people think we're stuck on football and basketball because that's all we talk about on the website and lives and stuff. But look, John and I are in on every single. If you have flames across your chest and you're one of the 20 NCAA sports that we have at Liberty, I promise you that we are trying to find every flow stream we can find, every bootleg stream we can find. We're checking out stats, seeing how we compare to other schools. It just makes our fan experience fun. So enjoy this spring. I mean, don't get too caught up on the basketball loss. We'll be back. The basketball thing I cannot wait to get in Liberty Arena again next year. It'll be a lot of fun, but I'm not going to dwell on it and let it ruin my this athletic year any longer than today. I mean, I think a 24-hour recovery period is about all I needed. We got a baseball win today, actually, baseball sweep, beating JMU in softball. That means a lot to me because I have a lot of JMU friends, and JMU made a big run last year, and I actually low key love softball. So, it means a lot to me to be able to do that. So I just wanted to say that, can you imagine being at a school, and I can't think of one right now, maybe Gonzaga, maybe, Duke, I don't know what Duke's like I know they stink in football and I know anyways, can you imagine being at a
Dare I say Longwood? Could you imagine
Yeah,
losing to
yeah, yeah,
Longwood?
yeah. No, don't even bring them up. But can you imagine? Can you imagine being at a school where all of your eggs are in one basket with either football or basketball most of the time, or another sport like. But here we are. We're like I'm ready to turn the page to the spring sports and get it going, and and that's just how it is. And it's no love lost for the basketball program. I'll be back. I'll be following along all summer long to every single piece of recruiting news, every single transfer. I'll read and write every single thing and talk to everything. But it's time to flip the page to spring, and I'll catch you guys next October whenever you start your fall practice, and we go at it again. That's just what we're do as Flames fans. We basically just follow these Flames all year long, and that is an incredible aspect of what we have going on and what Ian has built. And lastly, I know I'm rambling, but Ian, so I started thinking just for basketball and football, and then you add in women's basketball, which is another powerhouse sport in terms of revenue generation, like the TV deals and stuff. So you have the 4 or 5, you call them the big five. What other school has ever been good at basketball, good at football, and decent at the other three, much less win a national championship in several of those? And the only school I could come up with was Baylor when Ian was there and what he built there. And I kind of dug into it a little bit and was like, there's a couple of examples where a team kind of flashed. Florida, for example, they won the national championship with Urban Meyer and with Billy Donovan in one year. But across the board, when the big five are that good, so what I'm trying to say is Ian has built that same thing at Liberty, where we have national powerhouse teams right here on Liberty Mountain. Makes turning the page on basketball season so much easier. I mean, let's get it. Basketball's over with. You guys did great. I loved it. But I am all in on baseball, softball, golf, and I know I'm missing several others. There's probably women's tennis. Coach is about to tweet at me here in a minute, but we're having fun
Of
with it.
course, of
So,
course, Chad says this, but I hope everybody knows
oh
that
man,
Chad, the last 24 hours for both of us, man, we were about as depressed as we could be. I texted him this morning. I said, Chad, let's jump on live tonight. He said, I can't do it. I can't. I said,
yeah.
I'll do it by myself then.
Yeah. Now the problem is, John, I didn't want to hear anything. It would just hurt. Everything you said, like Darius's last game, well, that hurts. Or Coach McKay not figuring it out,
Dude,
that hurts.
I need a new
Everything.
background. Look at my background.
Hey, I
It's
think
pain every time I look at my phone. I need a
yeah,
new background. Can somebody help me out? I seriously scrolled through all my photos on my phone today for about 15, 20 minutes trying to find something else just to get my mind off of it when I look at the phone.
I got the
And
same pick, John.
yeah, I couldn't even find one. I was like, I need to go get out here and take a picture of my family tomorrow and just change
Yeah.
it to them.
Take a picture of your family. Yeah. All right. Anyways, it's been a rough day, honestly. Just with I didn't even want to think about basketball, but doing this helped. Talking about it helped. Getting it out there. I'm honestly, it doesn't feel that bad to just turn the page on men's basketball. Like just like, hey, I'm turning the page. If they have a postseason tournament, I'll be there. I'll cheer and cover it and talk about it and tweet about it just as much as anybody else. But I'm ready to turn the page because I know again next year we're going to make another run. It's not like this was it. This was it. All of our eggs. We got all these seniors. Like no, we'll be back next year. And the ASON still runs through Liberty, in my opinion. So anyway, John, any other final thoughts?
No, man, you hit it pretty good, and this was good for my soul. I enjoy it. So.
It is. We truly live and die by the Liberty Flames, and I wouldn't have it any other way. It's a lot of fun to do it that way.
Dude,
So.
one more thing, then we can jump off. This morning, my wife Morgan, I told you this already, Chad. Of course, I love her. I love her to death. But this morning,
Uh-oh, John, should I stop you right now? Are
no, it's
you okay?
fine.
Okay, all
No,
right.
no, it's fine. She can hear. She can probably hear me. It's fine. But this morning, well, last night when I got home, I mean, we didn't get home till me and my daughter, we didn't get home till like 10:15 or something after finishing the press conferences and all that stuff. And you ditched me on our Chili's trip. But anyways, she was already halfway asleep when I got home. So this morning when she woke up, first two things she said to me, I'm sorry the team lost. And then the second thing she said, what are we going to do for spring break? Because their spring break is the same week that I had been planning for us to go on an NCAA tournament trip. And so that was the second thing she said to me. And that was like a dagger into the heart again. Like, And I told her, I said, I can't talk about it right now. Give me another day or two, and we can plan out NCAA tournament because we're not, or we can plan out spring break because we're not going to the tournament. But
Yeah, John, I thought I'm going to add that to my list of three things with fan engagement, the planning for March Madness. That's true. Like I've never had to plan for conference tournaments. I've never had to plan for March Madness, but now every year it's like, all right,
just like a bowl game.
that just like a bowl game, I'm planning on it. And next year, I mean, we're already planning middle of December. I mean, I've already, when you talk about vacation from work, when you're talking about, vacation funds and bank accounts and everything, those are two things I've booked in is bowl trip and March Madness. And, that's just how it goes. So that's another thing that, never happened 3 years ago. So anyway, all right, Flames Nation, it's been a lot of fun. I am, continue to fan the Flames. And it kind of felt dirty being a little bit critical of this basketball team, but at the same time, I know that Coach McKay and Darius both appreciate what we got going on, and they trust us enough not to throw them under the bus. So it's been fun, and we'll talk to you guys next time. John, it's going to take me about 20 years to end this broadcast.